Hello and welcome a new video. What's the biggest red flag when meeting new people? Don't forget subscribe. One of my bosses once told me that whenever you start a new job/position, it's usually the first person who tries really hard to be your friend is the problem child of the office. They'll usually start telling you of people to avoid as well. I found this very useful. They don't listen to what you say and respond accordingly. They only wait for you to stop talking so they can talk about whatever they want to talk about. Usually when people speak of having a lot of people in their life that somehow turned on them and now they don't speak anymore. I remember one old coworker would become super fast friends with someone, then within weeks, we don't really talk anymore once, I'll accept, hell even twice, but when it's 4 to 5 times over, guess what? It's not everyone else. I've seen a lot of answers along the lines of when they say negative things about others, which I agree with by the way, but for me a huge red flag is when someone can't let someone else receive praise or be the center of attention. I've met people in the past who have shown small signs of jealousy when I've praised mutual friends, siblings, strangers, etc., and in each case it was indicative of bigger jealousy and self-esteem issues that led to some messed up stuff. When you barely know them and they act like your best friend, then later ask to borrow money. I had a friend like that. He was in his early 20s but seemed an alright guy. One day, out of the blue, he tells me, "Dude, I really need to move out of my parents' house, but I don't have any money. I need about $300. I just stood there for a second and then said, "Dude, I don't just have that kind of money." His response was, "I know, but I also know you have other friends who do. Can you ask them for me?" I ended the conversation and stopped talking with him from then on. We weren't even friends for very long, but I didn't need someone in my life constantly asking for money like that. They don't really listen to you or pay attention to what you're talking about, but expect you to be totally engaged with whatever they say and act put out if you aren't. When they monopolize a conversation, when they steer the conversation so that you end up being shown a phone full of photos, when they engage in a whole monologue about their health or relationship issues, when they brag a lot if not about themselves, then they're family members. Let's be honest, we often see these red flags, but deliberately push on to form a relationship. If the relationship goes bust, we critique ourselves for not heeding the warning signs. This is an unjust self-criticism. I have only ever met 2 men that I'm aware of who lied to me about their ages when we met. Both of these men turned out to be extremely unpleasant and abusive people. I dated one of them and knew the GF of the other one. I think people who lie easily even over trivial things tend to have very complex psychological problems and are best steered clear of. How they treat waiters/waitress, cashiers, janitors, bus drivers, and everyone in the service industry. A coworker friend of mine left a bunch of trash at the cinema after we finished watching a movie. I angrily picked up his trash, chased him and told him to throw it away at the bin 3 meters outside of the cinema. And he replied, "Dude, why are you so Japanese? I did graduated from Japan. I'm just letting the janitors doing their job." No dude, it's not being Japanese, it's being having manners. Couldn't look at him the same way again ever since. You immediately start hearing from them about all the time other people have hurt them, betrayed them, or otherwise been assholes to them. If everyone you encounter is an asshole, chances are, you're the asshole. If they are unaware of people around them in a social sense, like they don't thank service staff or stand in the middle of crowded walkways and not move out of the way of others. Congratulations, you have made friends with a toddler. This is not the biggest of red flags, just ones that have recently pissed me off. A few red flags for me are, they flake or cancel plans at the last minute constantly without reason. They rant about their personal problems and don't talk to you at all about common interests. They never have money on them but ask you to take them around to places. A people user. They start drama such as fights with you or others. Toxic. When emergency situations happen, they're nowhere to be found or heard from. When they have rules for their life that they expect others to abide to. If you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best kinda shit. The first time I met one of my old roommates, she told me she had a 3-strike rule with people and then she was done with them forever. Everyone has general rules of thumb in life, things they learn to be true, etc. But to take the time to essentially announce this to people you're meeting is more or less of a warning about you than others in your past/present life. The totally shocking plot twist? She was a horrible person. Ironically, this did not apply to the guy she was constantly breaking up with throughout the year. "We should go out and get pissed tonight. Mate, we literally just met 2 minutes ago. I don't even know your fucking name. time. I am not going to make myself vulnerable through alcohol with you at night in a dodgy town for never been to, just because we have the same phone. At my work there was a new hire that I ended up being friends with. We were friends for not even 3 weeks, and one night in the middle of the night at about 1 a.m. I woke up hearing strange sounds in my room, then noticed it was coming from the dark corner of my room. I turned on my lamp next to my bed and it ended up being that kid. He had a 12-pack of beer and ended up trying to convince me to drink with him. He knew I liked beer and thought if he brought some I wouldn't be mad for him showing up uninvited and in the creepiest possible way. But I was extremely pissed and kicked him out and told him not to talk to me anymore. Eventually I had to quit my job and get a restraining order. He did more creepy things and showed up at my house multiple times in the middle of the night, but that would require a novel of typing. I would get rides to and from work from my friend of 15 years, but one day he left work early, so the new hire offered to drive me home. That's how he found out where I live. I should have realized that when he dropped me off I said bye to him and walked to my front door, then he followed me to my front door and invited himself in. That was a red flag right there, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt, which was a mistake. If you meet someone who has absolutely no friends from more than a year ago and high drama relationships with family members, that person is going to turn out to be an absolute drama llama and an asshole. They don't need to have had the same bestie since kindergarten, but if they have no cordial friends from growing up, high school, college, work, the last place they lived, that's because they're cutting a swathe of disaster through other people's lives and alienating everyone who gets close to them. Or possibly they're in witness protection. But in my experience, they always turn out to be catastrophes who will do some damage to your life too. The truth is you wouldn't get to know the person you are talking about in a minute or two, or hours. A lot of comments on here reminded me how prejudiced people are to strangers. The truth is there are a lot of different factors on why people act in certain ways when you meet. Of course there are assholes, of course there are bad and evil people, but it isn't fair to judge a person based on the first few meetings. Maybe they had a bad day, maybe they are stressed, maybe they have anxiety, etc., and don't know what to do, so they act different. However, if they continue doing what they are doing, then that's a safe bet. That's when you know they aren't your type and can safely take a step back. People, stop the prejudice. Always have an open mind when you meet someone new. Don't set your mind to one side. I have no filter usually indicates that someone is an asshole. However, not always. My friend's mother warns people that she has no filter and asks for forgiveness in advance and for people to let her know if she says something insulting. She means well and is genuinely a good and kind person, but she's socially awkward and chooses words poorly quite often, much to her embarrassment. She's more of a Michael Scott than anything. What's usually an indicator that someone is an asshole is when they say, "I tell it like it is." That usually means they intentionally say things in a rude and mean-spirited way. People who lead with their trauma. None of that makes that person unique, nor will it excuse their bad behavior, which almost without fail will follow. I'm specifically referring to people that tell you about all of the ways they've been traumatized within an hour of meeting them. In no way do I think people should never talk about their traumas. Please go find a therapist or counselor. It's important. That said, it's a bit much and assumes a lot about the person you're trying to become acquainted with to think your trauma is unique when you're having an opening conversation. No one gets through life without trauma. They try to project their voice as loudly as possible to overplay their actual feebleness, but then the capillaries in their nose burst from the effort and they grin at you through rivulets of blood seeping into the interstices between their perfectly bleached teeth. Of course, blood is an emetic, so they will retch and eventually vomit out a perfectly formed sausage on the floor before you. It's a condom filled with cocaine. Turns out they're a drug mule. Everybody needs to make a living, but I'm wary of such people. Man, I hate these threads. The reason being, one of my current best friends had so many of these red flags when I met him, but for social reasons we were forced together anyway. The more I spoke to him, the more he opened up to me, and I realized he had been through some genuinely fucked up shit. I learned to forgive his loudness and the way he could, and would, talk forever about things that I just didn't care about, without noticing I wasn't particularly interested. I could see that really he was trying to be the best person he could be, but because of the environment he grew up in and the various tragedies he suffered, he wasn't quite there yet, and that was okay. A year on, due in part to our friendship, he's probably one of the kindest, most charismatic people I know, and everyone, including me, totally love him. Give people a chance, don't be judgmental pricks right off the bat. When they share an inappropriate amount of information about their personal life for how little time you've known them for, run away from those people. They are addicted to drama and pity, and they end up being really clingy and annoying. And if it's in the workplace and on day one of training them and you hear about their son's suicide, their daughter's drug addiction, how much they hated their last job, why they lost their house to foreclosure, and how much their irritable bowel syndrome affects them, get away from them. They are trouble. If you are hearing way too much information and you have to stop and say, "I'm sorry, what's your name again?" that's a red flag.